Welcome to the moment that changed everything, where we interview notable creative people to gain insights into how they got started and learn more about the moments that shaped them and their careers. Today's guest is Drew Froman. Drew has worked as a writer at some of Canada's biggest agencies and freelanced at many others.
That's an idea statement. That's not a strategy. I came to realize that a vast majority of people in the industry don't know the difference. And as a freelancer, to get the thing done, you just kind of, a lot of times, like you said, most of the time, you just write your own brief. You got to find the brief inside the brief, right? You listen to what they say and you got into it what they actually want.
Starting life as an illustrator at OCAD, Drew managed to make his foray into the ad world while he and a friend created a much-loved sketch comedy show called Hotdog Boy. It's just one of the interesting topics we get into during this interview that covers his hometown of Wawa and how important strategy is in leading a client to buy. I hope you like it. Drew Froman.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah,
You'll be happy
thanks.
to note that you're the first guest from Wawa.
Yeah.
Is that surprising?
No, not really. Yeah, I could get you some other guys if you want. Yeah.
I want to start by just talking about where you grew up. You know, Wawa, I don't meet a lot of people from Wawa, but we'll kind of go back and see how that connects somehow with advertising, because I know that the ad scene in Wawa is probably blowing up right now. But
Yeah, I still have a logo for Wawa Handy Store that's still up that I did. Made a good like $50.
oh, so it's like your first freelance gig.
Yeah. I would just all my logos and stuff. I just ripped off like 70s album covers. Like it's the Aerosmith logo that says Wawa Handy Store. So where my dad got his haircut, it was at a convenience store / barbershop.
Is that still around?
The store's still around.
Really?
Yeah.
And the logo?
Yeah, it's still there.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's your kind of your Wawa legacy kind of.
Yeah, I got a couple of those, and yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah.
So what was it like? I mean, I think a lot of people have a notion about what northern towns are like, but unless you've lived there, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. Pretty idyllic as a kid, you know. Biking to the beach, running around in the bush, all that kind of stuff. As a teenager, it's a lot of small town drinking, like sort of trailer park Boise, sort of foo bar, that kind of thing. A lot of giver and drinking and bush parties and all that. Kind of our high school was, I think, 300 people total.
Wow.
Like grade 13, I had classes of like 3 people, you know? Yeah. Not maybe the strongest education, I have to say. You come to Toronto and you go, oh, art programs, stuff like that. Yeah.
Interesting. So what did your parents do?
My dad was a miner. At the mine, he was an engineer there. Mom worked at the municipal office. Yeah, mining town. That's where they were all up there. A lot of Ukrainians, Polish guys, all those giant, huge-headed. That's what it was up there, yeah.
So you went to a small school.
Yeah, a little high school, Michipicoten High School, home of the Vikings. I have a mural up at the high school of a Viking. I stole a Frank Frazetta painting, which was off another album cover, and all that. Yeah, it's all like White Snake and Iron Maiden logos. Everything I ever did was stealing off album covers. Yeah, but I would draw. I drew a lot, painted. I thought I was going to do like write and draw comics. That's what I did all, like spent evenings writing and drawing comics.
Wow. So how did you get involved in advertising? How did that happen?
I went to what's OCAD now, I'll say then, for that, to draw comics. And I was the best artist in Wawa. And then I came to the big city and holy Christ, right? Like there's a whole other level, and I had a mini meltdown about that. And then about second or third year, found that the level of talent and the level of sort of insane passion you need to actually make it, I didn't have either of those for drawing. And then I took a advertising class with Sandy Keaty. And I remember this conversation I had with her, because I was in the bottom of the class and all the drawing and painting and stuff like that. And I was kind of like just going to the Beverly and drinking, and had this class. And I said to her at one point, I said, so your job, like what is it I said? So you sit around and think of goofy shit. And she says, yeah. And your preparation is to read magazines and like watch TV? She says, yep. I'm like, yeah. So I became like one of the top people in that class bottom and all the other stuff. And it's like, okay, this is fun. Now I'm doing something where I'm sort of better than average. And yeah.
Was that a writing course?
No, it was art direction. They were mostly, and then there was a writing class. And Al Kasmer, I don't know if you remember that dude. Yeah, top guy, fascinating guy, amazing speaker, and he made it seem so exciting. And it was all about, you know, mining cultures and finding out what it's like to be, you know, a 30-year-old person from Indiana or whatever. And it was like, oh, this is fascinating, and taking in culture and books and stuff. So he got me. He made it seem incredible. So he was definitely the guy I was like, I want to do that. And then I became the guy who wrote everyone's body copy, because nobody else wanted to, because they're all, you know, artists and art directors and all that. And I'm like, this doesn't seem finished. So then they're like, all right, okay, write it. So then I just kind of, and my book, so I'm still going out there as an art director, and I don't really have a sense of color and like not really a good sense of design, really, you know. And I would get it. They would go, you ever think of being a writer? I'd like a polite wave.
Because it seems like you're leaning that way.
Yeah. And okay. So then, yeah. And then I got use the last year, which is a lot of the kids and a lot of the instructors said that too, because they're real instructors, right? I don't know if they're like that now, but I think they are. But these were guys and gals working in the industry, and so they were like, just use this as a springboard. Like, build your book, go out there. And so, yeah, ended up getting a job at Bozell, which ended up turning into DDB.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember being at my college course in Centennial. There's a lot of people who had already got their BA or whatever, and then were looking to get into the business. And it seems as though you have to end up specializing and going to like an ad-based school or take an ad-based curriculum for you to develop a portfolio so you can finally get out there and do it.
I don't know if the generation before me, they were like, you'd hear these like, oh, he was a cab driver and you know, ship worker and all that. But I think, I think my generation was maybe the first that had, there were like specific curriculum, and technically you don't, I suppose, but that's kind of how you learn to build your book and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember coming out of college and not having, I guess, it's actually fun to go back and look at your portfolio from when you were just in college and looking at it and thinking, wow, I thought that was okay to actually be out there, and it was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
We had Chris Hirsch on the show, and he actually, at his agency, they got everyone to pull in their old college portfolios,
amazing.
and they had a really good time looking at everything and sort of going. And he was actually, he was like, I wasn't as bad as a lot of people, right? He was sort of okay with it, but when I look back at mine, I'm positively horrified.
Yeah, I've got one I remember. It was Sandy's class, actually. It was for, I think, United Airlines or some airline, and it was. It was a drawing. It was supposed to be like a photograph, but I had to do a color drawing. It was a leg with a tag on it and an arm and stuff like this. And the idea was that it's like, so you don't lose an arm and a leg, but it's an airline thing with arms and legs with tags on them. And I was all confident. I drew it, and I would kern the type. Like, I thought this was amazing. And I walked in with a swagger, and I laid this down, in front of Sandy. And I remember just her looking at it, and then she just kind of looked up at me. She's like, okay, let's talk after. And I'm like, what? What's that mean, right? And then as I'm sitting there stewing, as the rest of the kids are looking at the thing, it slowly dawns on me, though,
I thought you were going to say the whole time you thought she's going to pull me aside and tell me I'm made for this business. Right?
Well, that's what I thought was going to happen, but then the look in her face was like, oh, no, I did something, and then I figured out what I had. Yeah, I wish I had those. I really wish I had my old book. That'd be great.
Everybody's different, but I think when it comes to your own ideas and stuff, especially when you're first starting out, you can have people who are like, it's kind of like American Idol, where you see someone there's no way they're ever going to make it as a singer. They're just too terrible. No amount of practice is going to make them very good at it.
Yeah.
And you just know that. And there's that combination of really not knowing what you're doing, but it's supreme confidence that I actually wish that I had.
Yeah.
I was, you were probably the same, where you were kind of like, I don't know if any of my ideas are any good. People would encourage you, and it would kind of validate things and kind of go, well, maybe I could do this. But then there's that opposite person who's like, no, what are you talking about? It's amazing.
Yeah, there was one guy, And me and my buddy, this guy's confidence was insane, and his talent was almost zero, but he had this swagger, and everyone loved him. He was this handsome dude, and he was like, not a nemesis, but I hated this guy, because it's like, how can he be so confident? He's not like, everybody puts their stuff up and he's like B- tops. Like, there's crazy talent in the year that I went through. Like, and then he's talking and bullshitting about his goofy little concept, which is like, both Rob and I are in the back are like, what? That's not very good. But somehow he just kind of warmed everyone up, and then they loved it. And I guess he went off and had a good career. I probably shouldn't. I don't know where he is now. Hopefully he's super successful. That would be hilarious.
I mean, I don't think that you can look at the landscape of advertising and what's out there right now and not think to yourself that some people are very good at selling just okay ideas.
Yeah.
If it was the other, it was the opposite. It would be like
Yeah.
British television commercials, which apparently everyone is pretty good. But here I know that it's like, there's got to be someone who's really adept at selling pretty crummy stuff.
Yeah.
To get it all through.
I'm sure you found that. I found that too, and it's personality type. Some people are all about the actual thing. Some people are kind of about the thing, but kind of about the talking about the thing. That's a pretty deadly combination. Then there's some who are like, they don't even care about it. They're just really good talkers and persuasive people.
Yeah.
And then there's fucking thieves too, right? And they're like, those. There's some of those guys too.
I don't know if there's a higher per capita crooks in advertising or not, but yeah, I guess throughout your career you're going to come across a few people who are charlatan-esque.
Yeah.
Who are usually
not
wildly
many.
successful.
Yeah. Not a ton, but a few. But most are like pretty damn good talkers, like really persuasive. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. And back then, certainly nobody told us that, but it turned out to be that's maybe the biggest thing that maybe we should have all practiced more was the presenting of the idea. That art, when you've seen it, I know you've seen it, where the client or whoever you're trying to sell an idea to, they've already bought the idea before you've even shown the idea. Yeah. That's a level that it's like, yeah, that's insanely effective.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like, when you have children and they're in school and they don't teach them anything about money, and you'd think, well, wouldn't that be part of it? And even in these curriculums, like, you'd think that there would be a little bit more emphasis on the sale, like bring in those people who can really show you the best practices as it relates to selling an idea, because they exist. And we've all been in a room with that person who's been able to, you're right, they're all nodding before it gets out there, and by the time they see it, it's like, well, not much to talk about now.
Right, foregone conclusion. Yeah.
Who are your mentors? Like, who helped you when you were just starting out writing, and what were they like?
I met a guy, which is a whole other thing about the nature of the business that kind of sort of disappeared with the either you're the boss or you're idea generation machine, and there's none of these sort of ACD types in the middle who have the time. But a guy, Bruce McDonald, he was a writer. He was at Bozell, and he had his own agency, and he was like a writer. He was a poet, and he understood the craziness of the curtain, and good and cynical and dark and all that. So he loved sort of molding me into this evil little thing. But he was a huge mentor, and he showed me so many things and helped. Like, I remember one, I sold something to Labatt, and it was a big deal. Called me Daryl at the end of it. That was the other one. The client was like, "Great work, Daryl." I was like, oh, "Okay, that's a good lesson." It's like, all right. But he said, and I'm kind of a big deal now, right? I sold a print ad on the back of Now to Labatt. Like, I think I've arrived. And he's like, "It doesn't get better, it just gets bigger." I'm like, whoa, that's dark. But in a way, I totally understand what he's talking about. The machine is the same, it gets more complicated, but it just gets more complicated. I thought that, I don't know, I found that a really interesting,
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't know what the best advice. I guess that's some of the advice that he was giving you. I know for me, like, I think one of the best pieces of advice I got about writing was like to resist the urge to write right away.
Yeah.
Don't sit down and start executing yet. Think about what you're going to say first, And also the conceptual development is really about thinking first. And you can write, like I was going to ask you how you like to conceptualize and write, but I know for me, it's like, if you are struck with an idea that you think is really fruitful, then you can go ahead and write that, but don't dismiss the discipline of sitting there and trying to mine different areas. Don't go too deep, but try to have a collection of things that you think are pretty solid before you actually sit down and go, okay, well, I'm going to flesh out these few ideas.
Yeah, that's a big lesson for me, and I still fight that. I still have that. Don't fight that urge. I try to do the treatment, the sort of like, okay, describe sort of the idea roughly. What is it? And then stare at that for a while and go, okay, if I've got a few of those, then I'll, SFX, convenience store, ding, customer, that, don't get into that stuff right away. It's really hard. Sometimes you just want to go down there, and it depends the problem you're solving, right? If you're solving bigger and bigger problems, you really have to make sure you do that.
I think that's one of the things about, when you first start in the business, is that you can envision an idea and you can write it, and oftentimes you're not writing the real difficult part, which is how does it end, or how are you wrapping it up, or how are you articulating the idea in a clear and concise way. And really, some of the great writers that I worked with were so hardcore disciplined that they would write the ending first, or they would write the announce copy if it was radio first.
Yeah.
Because they knew that if they had that down cold, then the rest is kind of like gravy.
Yeah.
When you have a destination that you're writing towards, it's a lot easier than having all the fun part up front and then trying to wiggle your way back to like sort of an ending that makes sense.
Yeah, which is kind of like what you like that doing that, writing that announcer copy is sort of you're distilling. You've got to distill and solve the problem. So now you've solved the problem. Now how do you charm the consumer into taking in that chunk of information? Yeah, you got to solve that. Bruce taught me that as pure writer and all that, but the power of the slogan. If you can take that 400 word document and the 84 meetings and all that, and you get it down to 3 words, like that's an incredible amount of power and an ego boost if you can do that. So that was always the grail as a writer. That's a pretty great thing to be able to do that. And people go, yeah, that. And you're like, yeah, not just, yeah, that. That was really goddamn hard, but it is amazing when people go, yeah, that. You just took everything swirling around in all our heads and that's it.
Boiled it down.
Oops.
Boiled it down to 3 or 4 words, a collection of words.
Yeah, that can work out of context, which is an incredible thing. Yeah.
I think that's what makes it difficult. Like, I always tell people I've explained to my father a million times what I do. He still doesn't know what I do.
Yeah.
Right? And that there's a lot of misnomers out there about what we do, is that oftentimes it falls on the creative people to kind of...
I'm beating the shit out of this. Sorry, Josh. I know. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, yeah. By the end, you're like, Jesus, Drew, get your shit together. You work in a studio. What the
in all
fuck's wrong
fairness,
with
you did warn him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does fall on creative people sometimes to actually even, make the brief make sense. I always tell people, I think I've received maybe one brief in my entire career that I thought was actually really solid and allowed me to just run with creative really freely. The other ones were actually, getting a document where you're looking at it and you're questioning it and you're sort of thinking, well, it's not quite there yet, so I'm going to help do that first.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of that work is what falls on the shoulders of creative people, because you're kind of the last, link in the chain, right? At that point, you're going to have to start to realize ideas, and if that document is somehow not accurate, then, or how many times have you done a job where you've actually created an ad that really doesn't connect to the brief, but the ad is so good that the account team goes, yeah, well, forget about the brief. Let's just go down this road. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Working as a freelance writer, you find out all that. You find out the real rules of sort of a human interaction and what people are all kind of doing. They can say they're doing this and mining strategy and this, that, but when a lot of times it comes down to that, a clever little line, and then it's like, but what about all that? And as an intermediate freelance writer, I would get in all these kind of, little scuffles with all these people, like trying to nail down, no, that's an idea statement. That's not a strategy,
right?
And then I came to realize that a vast majority of people in the industry don't know the difference. And as a freelancer, to get the thing done, you just kind of, a lot of times, like you said, most of the time, you just write your own brief. And then you go from there. And they don't know that you rewrote the brief. You call it I explored another direction. But what you did is you rewrote the brief, and then you wrote ads to that. And they're like, yeah, sure. That's a huge one, is especially as a freelancer, and also on the audio side too. You got to find the brief inside the brief, right? You listen to what they say, and you got into it what they actually want. And that's a massive one with writing. That's a weird thing. You can't tell that to kids, like, well, no goddamn strategy, and you make up your own and all that. Like, you have to kind of learn how to do that. But okay, that's a thing that I don't understand, is why aren't strategy people in this industry grizzled old writers? Because you've had to solve thousands and thousands of these kind of strategies. There comes a point where you kind of have that Zen thing where, like, you read a strategy and almost instantly you either get a pit in your stomach, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Right? Or it's like, oh, this is a springboard, right? Ding. It's like, you could do this, we could do this, we could do that. I don't know if any of those could work, but it's a springboard. It's making it fun to come up with. And you have to have lived those things. You have to have sat there for like 60 hours trying to make sense of this brief that doesn't make sense to get that, right? And if you just kind of learned it in university and you've never had to actually solve the brief, you're just making briefs, I don't think you can get there. I guess it'd be like, I don't know, hey, I'm an architect, but have you ever actually walked inside of your building, or have you ever lived in one? No, I don't really. I just, you know what I mean? I don't really leave the office, like that kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And you bring up a good point. I don't think, I don't know why there isn't more like senior writers that are out there that have kind of made that transition to strategy. I think you still have this idea, this territory that you have very strategic writers. And I think in every writer you have, you got to have both, and that there's degrees of strength there. You have some writers who are incredibly strategic, not incredibly creative, and they're successful because they've got that left brain thing going, and whatever they end up doing, it's not going to be wrong.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you have these brilliant executors who can somehow not even really have a strong grasp of the strategy, but they solve it creatively such that they're incredibly successful too, even though a strategic person might look at it and go, well, it's not quite, but it doesn't matter. It kind of transcends that.
Yeah.
Everybody is a balance of those two things, and they're going to have one strength, one muscle that is a little bit bigger than the other.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, there's this young writer I'm trying to help find a job right now, and he's an interesting case of, I haven't had this, I suspect, I don't know how you've had this, but almost always with the young writers is like, oh, they'll have a really clever ad, but the sort of the underpinning campaign idea is probably either non-existent or pretty fluffy, and but this guy's got he's got these slogans that are like, whoa, that's a really cool human area that you could just blow out 1 million ads. And his ads are okay, they're raw, and he can just get better and better at that. But he's an interesting case of he's got 2 or 3 campaigns that are those are really great campaign ideas. Mm-hmm. That positions them. I've never had that before. That's really interesting. This guy, he's that.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, of course, when you get into the business, you are affixed to whatever technology is out there for you to express your ideas.
Yeah.
And I don't know what era would have been in, but to then look at a portfolio that looks completely realized, fully realized, comp to the extent that it's real.
Yeah.
Part of me almost thinks that it's sort of it didn't help the strategic side of things, because you could make something look so pretty and real that it kind of leapfrogged that. And I don't know what happened there. I think there's less places to hide. That's why I've always been drawn to radio. I know you've been drawn to radio. Is that you can't get away with any kind of razzle dazzle as it relates to visually solving things, because you have to do it all with words.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I mean, I know in my career, I would come across writers who were just deathly afraid of radio, didn't want to do it. They were like, I worked with one writer who was like, I don't do it. What do you mean you got to write I don't write radio.
Yeah, I had that for a while. I remember I had to do a radio campaign as a younger writer, and I that was like just, I lost my shit because I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm just not that guy. I guess I can't write radio. I can't do it. And it was because of that. It's like none of the tricks work. None of them. Because you have to, like you said, you got to solve that underpinning thing for radio, especially if you're going to do a campaign. You got to have a really tight sort of logic line to get you. You can't just go, oh, we're going to bang out 3 that take place on a mountaintop. It doesn't work that way. You have to really go, what is the thing? Yeah, and are we allowed to talk about that we work together? Is that a secret thing?
Absolutely, yeah. We did work together for a while.
Yeah. Steve's the funniest guy I ever met. How about that? We told a story of yours that we're not going to repeat here. One of the great stories you got. We told it this weekend, actually, to Adrian Newbold. You know Adrian?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, because he knows Meg and all that stuff. Yeah. So we told it was the one in the theater. Varsity Theater.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is a podcast. We probably tell it, but it's actually, no, we can't. Actually, it's too un-PC to tell.
Yeah.
Shocking,
wow.
Really.
Yeah.
Still, that line slaughters. So,
the best. Yeah. Well, that's why I learned. I mean, I learned that you're talking about the execute thing. That was in there. I think. That might have been you saying it. I was like, I mean, last week I was doing that. I was like, don't fucking start writing the script. Just, what's the thing?
And I got it from Tom Gowdy, and I think Tom Gowdy got it from Tom Nelson.
Oh, yeah?
I think he was the one to say, resist the urge. The line, I think, was resist the urge to execute.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's great advice. I mean, it really it's not comfortable because it's the hard part, but it's usually the most freeing part in the end, because once you do that work, then you can really start to explore other things. But until you do that, you don't really have much. And I'd much rather be on the side of being strategic, because you're going to have to sell it at some point. And it can't be just a subjective call.
Yeah.
You really got to help, you got to hope like hell that your client is on the same wavelength and subjectively likes the same things as you do.
Yeah.
Or else it's going to be a long day in that boardroom to try to convince them to buy something. Whereas if the strategic part's done, I think they can even struggle with the fact that they might not even like the way that you executed, but they can't argue with how strong it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and more, because of the nature of it, it's like you're less and less you're going to be presenting that. More and more, it's just going to live in a deck. Also, it has to be presentation proof, because even if you win the day, that client still has to go sell it to whoever, right, internally and all that stuff, and they don't have your sparkling wit, right? So it kind of has to be presentation proof. So the underpinnings pretty much have to be there.
It's true. And you're always going to have those scenarios too, where you might have a great idea to solve something through audio. So let's take a really heavily sound.
Oh, let's take a sound, make a song out of it, right?
That's right.
We've all done that. Yeah.
And that maybe in execution it turns out to be a wonderful thing, but on paper, try to sell that now.
Yeah.
Sound effect. I always say, to young writers, it's like if in parentheses after sound effects, if the line in the parentheses is longer than 2 lines, you're in deep trouble.
Oh, that's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you have sound effects, parentheses, spaghetti hits wall, slides down slowly, makes splat at bottom, and then a child yells, "Hooray!" You're like, you got to go back.
Yeah.
And
you're in for a world of hurt. That is just a horrible day.
You got to be like a 12th degree black belt in selling if you're going to get somebody to look at that. And then of course, as an audio director, I'm sure you look at that and go,
oh yeah, you get those and you go, okay, we're gonna have to have a call like today with the creative team, and let's.
Your sound effects is 14 seconds long.
yeah. That was another one that. No, that's not a fun one. That's a retail thing. One thing I do is I like to. I forget where I got it. Is I'll draw a line, usually blank page, and I'll do a little line here, and then the random. You're solving over here, you're kind of making progress, but over here you go, wheelbarrow, whatever, you know what I mean? Sandals or the thing, and so you don't lose those. That's just a goofy little trick that I find super helpful.
Yeah, no, I think that, and everybody has a different way of working and stuff, but I don't know. I hear people, it's like, I keep a pad by my nightstand, and if in the middle of the night I have an idea, I'll lean over. I've never done that in my life.
Never, eh?
Never. Do you do that? Do you ask your brain
I've done
questions
it.
at night?
Sometimes things will come. Recently I've been writing down stuff while I'm high, just to see what it is. Not a good
Not a
hit
good
rate.
idea?
Not a good hit rate. Not a lot of really good ideas. Yeah, but
at
it's
the
fun.
time-
It's fun to look at. Like, they're just bad. They're just not even like, whoa. They're just bad ideas. You're like, oh no. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
fun to do. Look at later.
Yeah, I think there's two camps there. There's people who believe that, drug-induced creativity is something that's like amazing and you can go places you've never been before, and there's other people who's like, that's never a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never done it on like acid or anything. Maybe you do. Maybe it's a whole other thing, but I don't know. I can't write high or drunk or anything like that old Bukowski things. Like, I don't think I doubt it, man. I don't know. I just get dull and stupid.
It seems like an old school kind of thing, but then there's a
Yeah.
part of me about the industry that loved hearing those stories, those old school people who worked in the business when it was very common to go out and have like, a bunch of drinks at lunch.
Yeah.
And come back to the agency half corked and, come up with ideas. And I don't know how they did it actually.
Well, you look back and you go, they didn't really come up with a lot of ideas. Like their work week is like nothing compared to, the volume of stuff that has to be done now. I mean, it was just, it was easy peasy for them. The more and older I get, the less I think those boomers were the golden, whatever, greatest generation, where it's like,
No, you're not feeling it.
no. They get it easy. They get, I bought a house on 2 years' salary, I just walked into a place and they gave me a job. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
You're bragging about that? Like,
Yeah.
doesn't that seem like...
Yeah, I want to cave your head in right now.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you go buy a house? Because, it's 40 years of salary for the down payment. Dummy.
Yeah, I can remember a senior level guy kind of going, well, why don't you just, why don't you put $90,000 down on a home and stuff like that? I was like, if I had $90,000 just parked somewhere, first of all, you should chastise me because it's probably not supposed to be just in an account with sitting there, right? And otherwise, what planet are you living on that I just got, $100,000 kicking around? It's but I always loved negotiating with those guys. It's always better to negotiate with someone who's wealthy. That's what I've found in my career.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because for them, what you want is usually insignificant to them.
Yeah.
They're more inclined to give it to you because they're kind of like, well, you just want that? And it's like, yeah, well, no, I'd be good with that. Okay, well, that was easy, right? I just find it,
That's funny.
yeah, they don't care.
Yeah, I remember a guy taught me that. Actually, Bruce said that to me. He said, you're asking for a bonus or whatever. First, you butter up the creative director, whoever. Oh, I'm starting a family, get them nodding, the life stuff. And then you say this cartoonishly large number because it won't be to them. And then don't say anything and just sit there. And you just got to hold it and let it, and whoever speaks next wins the negotiation. And I did that one time when I got a big fat, what I thought was massive bonus. And yeah, the guy was good. And then he walks out, and 10 years later, sitting around, they had a little reunion. Like, hey, you remember that? Because it was like enough money that changed. Like, I got to buy a house with this money. Right. I'm like, hey, you remember that thing, man? That was incredible. He goes, what thing? I'm like, he didn't even remember. Like, I like the kind of money that was swirling around. It's like to him, it was zero. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think some people, of course, are great negotiators, just innately have that ability. I think going in and asking for more money is like one of the hardest things to do. I think it's only trumped by actually walking in and saying you're leaving.
Yeah,
those are two moments that, like, I don't think you're human unless even if you're in a position where you don't really even like it. It's still hard to break up with someone. It's still hard to sit in front of someone who's hired you and say, you know what, we're not going to date anymore. I'm leaving. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's just tough to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for people in the business who are asking for money, it's like it is one of those really tough conversations to have. Plus, in our business, I'm not sure it's even harder to put a price on what you do.
Well, especially now, right? Things are changing. I don't know what the going rate of things are completely, it seems to be completely different. Different agencies come from different things. If they were a digital agency, now they're full service, or if they were below the line, like the economics and the expectations of what a creative writer is means different things in all those different people. So creative director said this, he said, man, creative people are so easy to negotiate with. Like, it's so easy. It's like, hey, okay, so you got a creative or something, and they, they want a bonus, or they want a raise, or whatever they want. And just before the meeting, maybe a little before, maybe a couple of days before, the last campaign you did quite hit it, eh? Anyways, okay, let's talk about your salary, right? That's it, easy. Yeah. I think you know exactly who I learned that from. Yeah, crazy, right? But that's true. It's absolutely, because we're full of swirling doubt.
Yeah. Actually, do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've gone down that rabbit hole, sure.
Yeah, he mentioned something that I never heard anyone really say. He said, for creative people, it's difficult for them to be satisfied in any position or job. And the reason is because creative people have lots of ideas all the time. And in many ways, they have more options than other people, because they can envision and think about new things. But that it's counter to them actually choosing one and believing it. Whereas other left brain kind of vocations, they can just kind of look at it and go, this is what it is. Yeah. So it was interesting. I'd never heard anybody really say that. And
yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Because you can imagine yourself, I'm gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna paint something in Costa Rica. Or, no, I want to be a financial something. I'm gonna write this stuff, or it could be anything yeah, you can imagine anything.
Well, I think about you in particular as it relates to this, because you had that Hotdog Boy thing that I think every creative that I talked to about it, or who watched it or consumed it, would kind of go, oh, that's kind of something I would like to do, because it was so much more purely creative as a form of entertainment and I think a lot of writers and advertising are kind of like that. They were like, oh God, I hate doing the hard part where you have to sell a product or a service. It'd be much better to just create entertainment for the sake of entertainment. But tell me about Hotdog Boy, because I don't really know about how that began and what that is. Does it even exist online? Can I see it?
I think Rob put up a bunch a bunch are on YouTube. The rest are on my hard drive. He has we put up a few. Hotdog Boy was with my buddy. It was pre-YouTube, sort of pre-internet too. So we were shooting little short films on digital cameras then. I had a G5, I think, with the massive hard drive, and got Adobe Premiere and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we just made one where he was like, he was just sticking his finger in jam and looking right at me, and it was cutting back, and we put some cello music on it. It was just very weird. And
because Hotdog Boy was the creative partner that you were working with.
He was just my best friend from OCA again, OCAD. I hated him because he was amazing. He's so he's so lazy, but brilliant. He uses his genius so he doesn't have to do work. So I worked with him at his place once, and I was like grinding, and I'm working, and he's like, he just sat there and figured out, because he just figures out the most brilliantly efficient way to do something, just because he doesn't want to work hard. And damn, I forget where was I going with that? Oh, he did this thing, and I'll say one of the first things. So we had to do like a portrait. This was colored pencil. I slaved away, and everyone else did too. And that's one of the first classes. Like, holy cow! Like the level is up here. And then he comes with something he rattled off that night, and it was like a cartoon Grim Reaper, and he didn't put a lot of work into it. Now he's got insanely talented, so his character design is great, but he made the eyes, little glowy eyes, red and blue. And our teacher was like, he's a classical artist from Italy and all this stuff. And he's like, what is this? And then Rob pulls out some 3D glasses, and there's this guy, this guy was like $2,000 prod or whatever. I don't know. Like, this guy was like a serious dude. And then he's got these 3D glasses, like, wow, it's coming right out at me. And then he got an A+. I'm like, you know. So that's him. So then he was a big part of that whole Hotdog Boy, because he would just come up with super simple, crazy ideas, and then I would do the editing.
But you told me that at some point you guys were pursuing this and you got some traction somewhere. Someone was interested.
Yeah, guys from. Do you remember Ask a Ninja? That's pre YouTube. And so producers, some guys from LA, that came up, and then we were gonna. So again, it was gonna be a subscription thing. Everything Red versus Blue did this. It's like, hey, subscribe, and then you get a short film a month. So that was gonna be the deal. But with a bunch of life stuff got in the way. But yeah, that was an option there. So we ended up doing about 20 of these things. Yeah, and they all ended up the same way. Basically, us looking at each other in weird homoerotic ways with goofy music. Yeah, Ari and Chris, they did a ton of the tracks. A Pirate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They did. They did a bunch. Yeah, film festivals. Got to go to film festivals.
This would have been early. What? This would have been
early 2000s, I think. Yeah, just before YouTube.
Okay.
So we were getting 1 million views. One of them got 1 million views. A lot of military bases liked it, which is weird, Yeah.
So how would I see that on YouTube? I just put in Hotdog Boy? Because I think I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it.
I don't know. I'll have to find it. It's on there somewhere, but it's buried under 1 million other Hotdog Boys. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. They're still funny though. There's a couple that are really funny. Yeah.
I remember them being hilarious.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could just look at him, and it would be hilarious just to even look at him. His eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a star. He's really funny. Yeah.
So I mean, I ask everybody, like what the craziest client story they ever had. It's kind of a recurring thing so far. I know. I remember I really wanted to put together a book of like crazy client stories, and I remember talking to one writer, and he said, I was presenting a script, and in the script it was a parade, and it was for a shoe company, and the parade is going along, and of course, there's horses or elephant or some animal is bringing up the rear of the parade, and it ends up like defecating, and then someone steps in it. And it was a concept for a shoe company or something like this, right?
Right. Oh, okay.
And he presents it to the client, and the client sits back and he goes, "Yeah, I really like this. This is great. It's poop, and poop is edgy." So that was going to be the little quote about his story, was that poop is edgy.
Right.
But I mean, I'm sure over the course of your career, you've had some interesting stories.
I got one. I got a studio one that comes to mind. A writing one? I don't know. But a studio one. It was for a casino, and I think out west or something like that. And the agency was in Toronto, and so we get the script, and the client had already written. Like the writer's like, it's just we got to get this done.
He
the
just
took it over.
wilted.
Yeah, they called him. His nickname was Cowboy X. They called him because he was from like Alabama. He came in and all these polite Canadians. He would talk like this and all that, and I don't know if that's a Sesame Street reference, Cowboy X. And so I see the script, and so it's for the script itself was glorious, and the prize was too. So the prize, it's for slots, and the grand prize was you could get shot into space. It was some company in Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, some company in Florida would launch you into what was legally the stratosphere and then parachute you back. Can you imagine? I don't
think you even have to write a script. I think it's just just announce the fact that someone is launching a body into space, and it would be enough to just go, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So the client had written. What he ended up with is it's a captain. We're all on a spaceship, and the captain was like, is your captain speaking? And something about, I don't know what, right? Some crazy things like, but on an audio side, as you know, it's like, okay, spaceship, space sounds, that's fun. You never get to do that. So, okay, sure. So we do this thing, and I made the mistake of not, so the client's remote. So we're working with the agency. We build pretty much the whole thing, which was, I should have gone after the voices to get the thing, but we've got this pretty much built because it was actually fun to do. So then we get on the phone with this guy. We send him an MP3 or whatever.
Cowboy X.
Yeah, Cowboy X. Yeah, and so he gets on. I've never had this. So he goes, so what do you think? You got it? And he's on the speakerphone. He goes, I hate it. Okay, now I'm going to go through it with you. I'm going to tell you all the things I hate. And then so he just goes through and it starts like a second in key. You hear that sound? I hate that sound. And then I go, I hate how this guy talks. And he just went through and he hated everything. But you start to realize like he wanted like, once you heard his voice, it's like, oh, this guy wants bigger, bigger, bigger. So then we just went back and put it through like a Michael Bay filter. Just huge. Send it back, goes, I love it. Except make that space sound, make it bigger. It's like, you got it. And yeah, so I don't know. That was really fun.
Did it make it better?
It was just crazy. The whole thing, none of it made any goddamn sense. I guess in a way it did because it was just so over the top, but you didn't even understand, like that what I told you, you didn't really know that it was being shot in space. Like it didn't make sense, but it didn't matter, right? You know, that's, as you know, so many times, meaning it doesn't matter. You've had this, I'm sure, maybe this is more of an audio thing, and maybe it is. Like you read so many goddamn scripts. Like I've done like 9-hour sessions where like at the end of it, you're like, I don't even know what the product is. Like I kind of know we're selling a APR or something for a bank, but I don't know what the loan is. But I know how to read it and know the ups and downs. I can go, the intent of this, and now they're trying to make me feel that. But it is weird. It's like, what's the product? I'm like, I honestly don't know. But I've now read it 50,000 times. Weird, eh? Like.
Yeah, you'd think that if you spent that much time going over scripts, spending that much time in studio, and to craft something that actually has a point, that you'd be able to kind of press time out. But then I think too, I've said this before to other people about how you have to have this tenacity as it relates to creative. But when you say 9-hour sessions, that's not a joke. You've been in a session for 9 hours working on a 30-second piece of communication. And if you've hit hour 7 and you're still have the gumption and the grit to stand up and say, hey everybody, we just wasted 7 hours because we're not really there yet. If you have that much, if you're that much of a sadist that you could go, I want to crack this sucker open after 7 hours, then you're getting a high five from me because you got more balls than anybody I know. Because most of us will just wilt. Most of us will go, I think if I last 2 more hours, this could be over. You know?
There's 3 people in here with kids, and you're deciding that, really? This thing? I mean, that's not a really, it's not a writing thing. I guess that's more of an execution of the writing thing. But still, it's the same thing. You've got these people.
Well, and I think also, too, it's like, it's not that someone hasn't seen the script. You know that this script has been written, presented to a creative director, then presented to a client, and then purchased, and now you're in a studio, and you're looking at it going, I don't think anybody's looked at this. But really, the reality is someone's looked at it, but they've just gone, fuck it. There's just too much stuff on their plate that they can't win. They can't fight that fight right now. And so you're, of course, you're the last stop, and now you got to ask yourself whether or not you're willing to go to war for it.
And taking it back to the strategy thing, that's exactly, a lot of times you'll get that strategy and you go, okay, these 2 things literally don't make sense. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And I get it. Everyone wants to say everything or get everything, and they want to, think it's, I don't know, we're simplifying, but also these 7 features, and you go, okay, that can't. So you kind of got to figure out a way to go, I've done this, I'm doing this more and more. It's like, so just so I'm clear, the main message, aka strategy, is, and they go, it's like, okay, great, right? But you're not saying, hey, I'm rewriting your strategy, but you are.
Right.
But you just do that. Just
you're
so
helping.
You got an email chain of like, this is the thing, right? No, we need another thing. Okay, great, then we'll add that, but at least now we know. That happens a lot.
Well, and I think you're a writer, your pedigree is writing, mine is too, and when I would be in those scenarios, you really do want to help the writer. Like, you don't want to blow up the day just to blow it up. You actually want to kind of help take it from maybe what their intent was that wasn't quite clearly articulated, and you want to edge towards that,
Oh yeah, helping the writer. Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking about actually writing, but you're absolutely true about You know what's funny is, and Gowdy said this to me, is like, you'd be surprised how few of the guys and gals that you think are going to be your regulars are your regulars. And he's right. It was really wild. I find sometimes we can do like a little writer thing, but there's a lot of times it's like they're folks that I am very different from, which which I was surprised at. Because I guess that makes sense, because I don't need another, if I'm me, I don't need another of me in there, right? I need someone with an entirely different sort of vibe. So I'm finding that's happening, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, so I'm going to finish with two more questions. I ask all the senior writers and creative people who come in here, whatever it is they're doing, what advice would you give a young creative person who's looking to break into the business?
Well, I'm assuming that they already love writing and love reading and all that kind of stuff. Reading is a huge one. I'm constantly blown away by folks who say they're writers and just don't read, which is wild. But I would say strictly on getting a job. O'Reilly gave me this. He said, just research the people you're going to go see what they've done, and then just have a couple of questions. You'll probably find something. You look up their stuff. Oh, they did that? Oh, that's cool. How'd you shoot that? Or how'd you do that? Or what was the idea there? Those kind of things. Huge.
Have a genuine interest.
Yeah. Or even at the very least, you're stroking their ego, which is what a lot of this is. Sometimes almost all of the process is making sure that's happening. I don't know. That I found that super valuable, and yeah.
What's going on with you now? You're still freelance writing, and you're
freelance writing and audio director at Tattoo. Kind of doing both. About half and half. I really like the writing side, and how I'm finding, in my experience, anyways, that there was that about 10-year period where all the mediums are completely in flux. And then so, as you know, Can was like that too. It was like, oh, somebody just came up with a really clever way to use Google Maps. Award, right? Oh, Vine came out, do something, award, and that's cool. But as things have roughly, as far as mass marketing has settled down, you know, some folks basically live on Facebook, or they live on Instagram or Snap or whatever, you know. It's like, well, those are all just kind of, I mean, we all said that, you know, the writers sitting around having beers, you know, we all said it's still storytelling. It's just the mediums. We've always been media agnostic. Nobody else thought that. It was like, do you do SEO? So you look it up, you're like, what, finding the right words? Yes. Do you do CRM, customer relationship management? Yes, I do. So now I type in CRM in my LinkedIn. But now it's kind of settled down into, well, Facebook is kind of print and/or video. You know what I mean?
Right.
It still comes down to, you still got to do that thing, find the idea, and then blow it up. Even more so now, because a campaign isn't just like, oh, we're going to bang out 3 things. You're going to bang out 40. Like, this thing has to be able to say 40 goddamn things, which is, you know, a bigger problem, but yeah.
I mean, I think for people who want to get involved in being a writer in advertising or a designer or whatever it is, that, you know, when people talk about, well, isn't that industry dying? And it's like, no, but again, back to the misnomers about our business and what we do, is that if you have the ability to take a whole bunch of information and distill it down in a concise way, which is such a big part of the job, if you can do that, you'll always have a job. And the people who are the most sought after are the people who do that really well. And it doesn't matter if it's on TV or if it's a piece of content or it's, you know, a fridge magnet, a tray liner. It doesn't matter. If you can do that well.
Yep. Letter from the CEO, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So much of it is organizing and distillation. Yeah. Almost all. Yeah. It's like whatever medium you want. Sure. Phenomenal. That's a great thing to be able to do. Which then gets back to reading more, thinking a little smarter, resisting the urge. It's a great one. It really is.
You know what's going to happen now. We're going to have somebody contact us and go, you told me I would always have a job in advertising.
Well, until the algorithms, you know. Yeah. I have it. Yeah. I want to tell a story of how my first job, how I got my first job. So interviewing all around the city, you know. Getting pretty good sort of thing, but we don't have anything for you here, don't have anything for you here, but I'm meeting all sorts of people in the industry. It's all going really wonderfully. Haven't gotten anything yet, but I got a feeler out here, you know? And I'm updating my brother and I'm updating my dad. You know, you got a job yet? You know, it's like, you know, no, but it's feeling good. And he's like, anyways, I go into Bozell and it's Paul Haynes, the guy who had just done the Black Label stuff, right? Like this guy's and so he hired me, ironically, not as a writer, as an art director, because he needed kind of both and anyway, so it's kind of ironic that, anyways, I got a job and I got an offer and it wasn't bad. Like the money was like livable, which wasn't the expectation at all at the time. And then so I got to a pay phone, right? And I call my brother and I go, hey, I got a job. He's like, oh, that's fantastic. You know, he's been sort of keeping track of me and all that. It's like, oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Have you told Dad yet? And I go, no, not yet. And he goes, how do you think he's going to be able to turn into a negative? And I'm like, you know what? I really don't know. He's like, well, call me back and let me know. So I'm like, that's funny. Hang up, you know, call my dad. Hey, Dad, guess what? You know, I just got out of thing. I got offered a job. I got a job. He goes, oh yeah? What happened to those other two places? They didn't offer you anything? What?
They didn't think you were any good.
Yeah. I only got one job. Sorry. What? Yeah. Anyways, I always thought that was a funny story.
That's good. It's a good story. I think it's a great way to wrap up.
All right.
I want to thank you for being on the
Thanks, Steve.
show.
It was fun. Really fun.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Weird not drinking. Talking to you.
This is gin.
This episode has been brought to you by the National Advertising Challenge, North America's only brief-based challenge that sends winners to Cannes, France.